We can automate that process, eliminate errors, save money, reduce stress, reduce headache, accurately, on time, and in compliance with the law. Employee classification is huge. Are they truly contractors helping a small business scale up to that organization?
So welcome to today's show. We have a very wonderful, informative guest today. We have Justis Mullins, a manager at ADP Payroll Company. Justis, welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm excited to connect. How are y'all doing?
We're doing good. Yeah, we're glad to have you, man. And for our audience out there, it's kind of funny because I know we just did this recently with someone else, Patrick Kelly of Hydro, with our partnership situation. I was joked the whole episode about him reaching out to me through LinkedIn, and it, long story short, ended up turning into a partnership that I think is going to benefit a lot of laundromat owners. Here today, we kind of have something similar because Justis is a manager at ADP. And he has been following us for a while on LinkedIn and reached out. We connected. We had a lot of conversations. And long story short, we now use ADP services. But the reason he's here today is because we have a surprise new partnership that we're excited to announce. And we'll give you a little bit more on that in a little bit. But
there's a discount.
There is a discount.
We'll
Carla likes the discounts.
I love sales shopping.
She
Elusive.
She lights up over two things: her boys, her children, and discounts. I'm like, what is up with that? She loves a deal. So anyway, we're here to talk about, payroll services, retirement services, from a small business owner's perspective with a quote unquote semi-expert. I know he gets a little bit uncomfortable when we call him an expert. Just so we're clear from the beginning, he is not a lawyer. He is not an attorney. We are not giving legal advice. So if we go down that path, this is just for informational purposes. By all means, we definitely recommend that you talk to your attorney and get good legal advice. And when it comes to payroll and labor laws, make sure that you're checking with the IRS, because at the end of the day, they're the ones called the shots. We all know that, right?
Absolutely. It gets touchy quick. It gets touchy real quick.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm sure you'll need to correct us about 100 times, but we're going to, for the most part, let you just educate us all. We've learned a lot over the last 6 months as we started a new relationship with ADP ourselves. They're doing all of our payroll services for Queen City Laundry.
They've been fabulous, super easy to use.
Yep. And the technology is fantastic. So we'll get in the product in a little bit, but Justis, if you would just start out real quick and kind of tell us what your role is at ADP and how you got into this industry, which is, I'm sure usually an interesting story, and how long you've been with them and that kind of thing. And then we'll jump into some nitty gritty here and try to help some people with their businesses.
Absolutely. I always love to tell this story. It's pretty interesting. I feel like this was meant to be, right? Like I was supposed to be here at ADP. So growing up, my mom was actually an accountant. She's a CPA. And she always used to go to conferences for work. She worked for a big Fortune 200 company. And they'd fly her out of these conferences and she'd come back with the ADP swag. So she'd have the backpacks, the pins, the footballs. And I actually had an ADP backpack from like 5th grade on through middle school. So it's very interesting. But I went to Georgia State for finance and came out of school. I'd actually sold cars for a couple of years. And knew I wanted to get out of the car business and get into technology, right? I started applying for software sales jobs, and ADP was actually the first one to come up on LinkedIn when I kicked off that search. And I almost resisted it for a little while. I thought I wanted to go into the startup scene, and after
you wanted to do something really cool, not payroll. Payroll's not cool.
Payroll, it's like payroll. And honestly, like that's all I knew about ADP. I was like, every job I've ever had paid me through ADP. Like all I know about them really are pay stubs. So I resisted it for quite some time, but eventually, like when I had sent the application in and had the smoothest interview process I've ever had, they called me in. It was, welcoming. And within a couple of days, like I got the call back, shadowed somebody on the job, and then I had a job offer. And the rest is history. So worked for 2 years in Atlanta and built relationships with clients. Because of my background in finance, because of my mom's an accountant, I think that lended itself really well to my ability to speak with CPAs. And so I started doing that, started working exclusively with CPA firms, accounting firms, helping consult with their clients on their biggest challenges. And the rest is history. Had an explosive 2 years, made a lot of relationships, helped over 300 business owners, and had the opportunity in June of 2022 to come out here and join the management team, where I now develop a team of 12 associates and train them to be the next generation of small business consultant here at ADP. So it's a long-winded answer, but yeah.
No, I think that gives us a great backstory. So you mentioned one thing that kind of jumped out at me, so I want to hit it real quick, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but ADP isn't a payroll company. They're a technology company. Is that what you said? Is that how ADP feels about their company? We're not a payroll company. We're a technology company.
Yeah, a lot has changed in the 2010s. Everything these days is moving into the cloud, and ADP is no exception. And so we've got employment data on over 90 million Americans, and it's all going into the cloud. And we're able to do some really cool things with that data these days.
Well, and to small business owners, which is who listens to our podcast, that might sound like a little bit intimidating, but in a way, but one of the things that we've learned, because we used one of your competitors for, over a decade, 12, 13 years. And when we switched over about 6 months ago to ADP, one, as Carla mentioned, the transition was really easy. But one of the things that we noticed, because I know when you and I were talking offline, we were talking about the idea that, ADP has, a technology that it is a level that their competitors don't have. And it doesn't matter who. The product we used before was a bigger company too, for payroll services, and their technology was pretty wonky, to be honest with you. And it could
be your platform is so much easier.
Yes, yeah, just the Run app, which we can get into this stuff in a minute, but just the app that's very user friendly for us and our employees. There's just a lot about the ADP platform that we found, the transition over, because we have about 35 employees, and that transition was very smooth for us, which of course you and Patrick helped tremendously in that area, but the onboarding process and things like that. So let's start with the idea that I know you work with, and I'm sure you have a name for it, but you kind of work with primarily business owners in is it 1 or 2 up to like 49 employees, and I think most laundromat owners would kind of fall in that category.
That's correct. Yeah. And I think you've hit on an important point. Like, a lot of people do hear the stats about us and think, oh, you guys are just way too big. You're not going to be able to serve my needs. But I work in ADP's most important business unit. And when I was told that back in the day, like when I first started, I was thinking, they're giving me the Kool-Aid. Like, I come in, here I am kind of straight out of college, and you're telling me that I'm doing the most important thing in the company. But yes, I work with the 1 to 49 employee companies at ADP, and I can tell you we've got over 1 million clients in 140 different countries, 80 to 90. So that's 800 to 900,000 of them are that 1 to 49 employee company. And my average client has 3 employees when they engage. And so, really the name of the game is helping a small business go from that mom and pop and scale up to that organization, a real organization. And so it's, we're helping them with the admin and compliance and, streamlining efficiency. That's really the name of the game.
There's nothing better than free. Ever heard that before? Well, it's not true. You know what your laundromat customers like even better than free? It's fast. That's right. They want to save time more than they want to save money in most cases. They want to get in and out of your laundromat as fast as possible, and they'll pay more for that experience. We're proof of that here in Cincinnati. That's why we added HM Company drain troughs into our newest store in Cincinnati. While they may never know why, your customers will love that your washers all drain better and faster than with old school drain pipes. As if that wasn't enough, every HM drain trough is made in the USA, so they ship in only a few weeks, and everyone is custom made just for you and your project. If you want to provide your customers with a top of the industry experience in your store, then contact your distributor to order your HM Company drain trough today, or visit draintroughs.com.
If a small business decides, okay, maybe I want to try out ADP, what are the first steps? What do they do when they reach out to you?
Yeah, so it all starts with a conversation. We like to be very consultative in our approach. And it starts with understanding that business, starts with understanding like, where did this business start, right? How long have you been in business? And what's the dream for the future? Like, what are we aiming to do? So that's where it starts. It starts with about a 20 to 30 minute orientation conversation. Just, get to know me, get to know you, get to know the company, and then get to know your plans for the future. And then from there, we kind of define the next steps forward. And sometimes those next steps it's not us, right? I meet a lot of business owners because we've got relationships with the top banks, the biggest banks in the country. And, we meet a lot of business owners that are just opening business accounts for the first time, right? They've just got the LLC and the EIN number. They've opened that business bank account, and our bankers, they do a great job, but they'll introduce us and we'll have a conversation. And a lot of times we're just planting seeds for the future.
So obviously ADP is known for being a payroll company, right? I think most people said the words ADP or the letters ADP. And if we've ever heard of them before, we just think payroll. We just think, they keep us legal, they keep our taxes. But there's a lot more to it than that. But let's start there with a baseline of, you mentioned a new business owner that it just set up their LLC and things like that. What are some considerations they need to have for if ADP is even a fit for them?
Well, I guess I should properly explain what ADP is. I think a lot of people are familiar with our name, familiar with our logo. And I'd say for good reason, right? Like, we pay 1 in 6 of the American workforce. Everyone knows us as that payroll company. We, work with over 80% of the Fortune 500. We even process payroll for the IRS. So the IRS uses us to pay the government employees.
Wait, so if I ever get in trouble, a person? Is that what you're saying? Help us out a little?
Might be able to hook you up. I don't know.
All right, that's good to know. That's worth the whole episode right here. All right, everybody in the laundromat industry, if you get in trouble, Justis knows a guy. Okay.
Hey, give me a call.
All right, so tell us about ADP, because I think we've had conversations around this offline, and there's some misnomers are there. So what are the misnomers that the average Joe or average Dave thinks about ADP and who you are and what you are?
For sure. So a lot of people just think of us as payroll, and they think of us as working with the giants, the Fortune 500s, the household names. But as I told you, we've got 1 million clients in 140 different countries, and 80 to 90% of them are 1 to 49 employee companies. So we're helping them in the beginning. Yeah. So we're helping in the beginning. Just how, it's a question of how can I help you pay your 2 or 3 employees accurately, on time, and in compliance with the law. Right. And a lot of times that takes a big sweat off the forehead. But then right after that, as you start growing, it becomes tedious to keep track of time. How are you keeping time? You paper timesheets. It's how we used to do it in the 70s and 80s, and that was standard. Or having a punch card on the wall, punch clock and a punch card. But today we've got technology, right? So we can automate that. We can automate that process, eliminate errors, save money, reduce stress, reduce headache. Same situation with benefits, bringing in benefits, attracting a higher caliber of employees. So it's all about efficiency. It's all about taking administrative burden away. It's all about helping business owners stay in compliance.
That's actually, I don't know how much you know about this, but that's kind of a hot topic right now in the laundromat industry. Earlier this year in New Jersey, there was kind of a crackdown on a bunch of laundromats for their wage and hours being legal or not. And they did what? They looked at 25 different laundromats, and like 23 out of 25 had labor violations. Yep. So with that in mind,
wow.
Can you share some insight on, I know one popular thing I hear from laundromat owners is instead of hiring like W-2 employees using a payroll system, they'll just pay people as contractors. So and then basically expect them to file taxes and all that kind of stuff because they're a contractor. Do you know some of the legality around that, or the rules around whether someone can be called a contractor and what needs to be in place for them to be legally a contractor?
I can tell you that's a really big one. So we have this conversation a lot with the clients that we work with through the bank because so many of them are brand new business owners. And so we dive really deeply into their processes. One of the first questions we ask is, how many employees do you have? And, we'll usually hear a number back. I've got 2 or 3. And we're like, okay, so what kind of work do they do for you? Are they using your equipment? Are they wearing your uniform? And a lot of this is designed to figure out, like, does this business owner have the awareness, or do we have to really bring the education during this meeting? But I can tell you, employee classification is huge. And so just to give you some background, it's a part of the Fair Labor Standards Act. You may have heard of FLSA. It was passed in 1938, and it was right after the Great Depression era. It was a major overhaul in the U.S. designed to put in place like protections, right, for laborers. And so that established like the overtime, after 40 hours a week, we've got time and a half now. It put child labor law protections in place. So it did a lot of good, but this is a huge topic. And I'd say, if any of, we're talking about laundromats here today. If anyone's trying to figure out, am I doing things the right way? I've classified these folks as contractors. Are they truly contractors? I'd point you to the IRS website. You can literally type IRS employee classification test, and we have what's called the common law test. And the common law test looks at 3 main criteria to help you determine whether or not, or basically how you should be classified. And so kind of looks at behavioral control. If you've got behavioral control over this worker, if you've got financial control over this worker, and it generally looks at the type of relationship.
So behavioral control would be like, if you're giving them a list of duties, then you have behavioral control over them?
Precisely. Are you directing them on how to do the job, or are you directing them on what the job is, right? Are you giving them the work and literally spelling out A to Z how it should be done? Or do they just have the task and is it up to them to figure out how to do it? Do you direct their hours? Do you tell them the time that they have to report in to begin working? Or is it up to them, to just get the job done? These would be a few considerations.
Do you know, is it like if any one of those 3 are met, are they considered an employee, or is it 2 out of 3? Do you know?
This is where it gets touchy really quick. And so, this is where there's a lot of gray area, right? And so this is where I would say it would be really good to consult with like an employment attorney or, an HR professional, right? And that's where ADP could come in. Right. To really look at your situation, look at, because it's based on the facts and the circumstances. Right. And so you could have 2 very similar businesses, right? You could have a laundromat owner in one state, let's say New Jersey, and one in Ohio. And they could have very, very similar circumstances, but the facts and the circumstances of one could constitute 1099 labor, while the other could be W-2. So, I'd say we have to look at it on a case by case basis.
Are the rules federal or by state?
So there's federal rules. So FLSA is federal, and then the states themselves can have more stringent policies as well.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's a lot to keep track of. See, that's why we use ADP. You all take care of it for us.
Yes. Well, that's a very natural transition. So I remember, and it's been, 14 years ago now when we hired our first legal employee, we did have a 1 and then 2 contractors, and I was aware of the differences. So I was very sensitive to that. And once we knew we wanted to, I guess promote is the right word, but hire them from a contractor to what we call a store attendant, meaning they would provide customer service and they would work set hours, and we would give them an employee uniform and a lot of the things you just talked about. We knew that was a natural transition just from reading the IRS's website. And the first thing I was like, okay, but I know I need to make them a legal employee, and like they need to have a W-2 and get a W-4 and all this kind of stuff. But other than that, I don't really know anything.
So then he's like, Carla, do you know how to do payroll? And I'm like, I'm not keeping track of payroll.
He's like, no, sir.
That is too many different taxes and codes. And
it is, absolutely. And we only had one store back then, but we very quickly migrated to 4 between different counties and all kinds of different things associated with that. I think most people, that kind of makes them, their heads swim a little. And I definitely want to talk about some other services that ADP offers and how they can help business owners and things like that. But before we go there, let's dig into kind of the nuts and bolts of ADP payroll, which I know you don't want to be a payroll company, don't want to be thought of that way. But I think that's how most people look at it. That's probably your most popular or maybe core service. As a business owner, if I have a few employees right now and I think that they're not qualifying as contractors and I need your assistance, I reach out. I know you mentioned earlier on that you have a complimentary screening, so it's free. You'll give them some light advice of whether ADP would work for them. And then we get into this small business product that you call ADP Run. So tell us about that service, that product, and what all that does for a small business owner.
For sure. And I think it's fair to say payroll, right? To refer to us as the payroll company. I mean, that's where it starts. And really that's the backbone of how you would, handle the administration for your employees. How it starts, if you're a business and you've got, 3 or 4 employees, you're not sure you're doing things right. We absolutely will connect with you for a complimentary HR screening. Okay. And really that's just a time that we can connect, figure out where you're from. You get to know us a little bit better on a more personal level. And then we dive into, your business. What do you do? What industry do you operate in? How many people do you have working for you today? What kind of work do they do for you? We look at all of that. We dive in also to the plans for the future. And I think this is where we could add a lot of value, Dave, is it's very easy to just say, hey, I don't want to deal with the headache of employees. I'm just going to, put these folks down as 1099. But that's not a long-term strategy, and I think your audience is going to be looking to make a long-term investment. That's a lot of equipment involved. There's a lot of time, a lot of, they say blood, sweat, and tears, right? That goes into making a successful, laundromat and providing a real service to the community. I think that this conversation is for anyone that's, taking that long-term view and wanting to make sure that they're doing the right thing, right? It would be a shame to get started in business and, hey, I'm just going to put them down as contractors and 5-10 years go by. And then we run into an issue. We run into an audit. You open up the doors of an audit and it could set you back. It could unwind all years of hard work. And that's really what we're in business to prevent.
Yeah. I know in New Jersey there were a lot of laundromat owners that got some hefty fines.
They did. So tens of thousands of dollars, $30,000 fines. It's not crazy to think that could be a few months profit.
Oh, definitely.
So to answer your question, Dave, about Run, Run is a payroll system, right? It's a cloud-based payroll system, and so our business owners, they log in on our website the same way that you would to your email, for example, and that is where you manage everything related to your employees. Starting out, you can just handle direct deposit and check delivery, just simply typing in hours. Typing in salary amounts, but really the system scales. So we can step in and help with timekeeping. So you keep track of those hours. We can help with benefits. As far as Run is concerned with small business owners, I'd say it's an investment, but the beauty is that it scales. And so for anyone that's long-term oriented, knowing that you've got the service, the support, and the option to grow your business, I think that's the real value.
I like too that you all Run has an app that the employees can use, so they can log in and check on things like what is my paycheck going to be before it even arrives in their bank account and stuff like that. I like that.
Well, and they can even, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can even just clock in through the app, right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. So ease of use is huge, especially as you talk about candidate experience. When you hire somebody in your organization, does your company have that big company feel, right? While still maintaining those small company values? Or is it small company values and small company processes, And so absolutely right. Let's look at like what bringing a software like that into your small business could really do. When you hire an employee, right? If you don't have a system in place, just any system, right? Not even ADP, what does that process of hiring and onboarding look like for the employee, right? Do they come in and fill out a paper application, or, do you email a paper application that they have to then print, scan and send back, or print, sign, and then bring into you? Where do you store that? How does that information get translated to the person that actually is responsible for paying that employee? When the employee is onboarded and needs a pay stub, do they have to like send you a text message in order to get that? And is there a lag time? If they need to go, out and buy a car on the weekend, do they have access to that pay stub? And so, putting these systems in place is really the first step at increasing and helping drive retention, right? And, I think you guys could comment, but like, I imagine retention is probably something that's always top of mind in the laundromat
Definitely.
industry.
I think in every industry.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say that for sure. I don't think a lot of people think about it in the context you just said, but I couldn't agree more as someone that didn't used to be very good at hiring and now feel like we're pretty good at hiring and retaining great employees, which is a big part of our ability to scale and be more profitable, is finding talent, acquiring it, and retaining it. And there's no doubt about it that the best employees in any labor pool, whether it's, first, bottom of the labor pool, beginning, second tier labor pool, whatever it is, the best employees in those labor pools, they have options, right? And the last thing they want to do in most cases is work for an unorganized, chaotic organization. And there's a lot of things that fall into that, but one of them is your organizational structure, even things like onboarding and, something as simple as, wow, this company has an app, they use ADP, and I can just pull up, like she said, my last 30 pay stubs and look at them right here on a Sunday afternoon. I don't need to call anybody. I can just clock in on my phone. And I think this is why you refer to being a technology company, right? Is because I know that's a big part of what differentiates ADP from at least the company we used for sure. There was a polarizing difference in technology. And I don't think people see that as maybe as valuable as it should be. But I guess what I'm saying is, talking to the independent laundromat owner out there, if you struggle with retention or acquisition of rockstar employees, you need to look at all aspects of your business. Yes, compensation. Yes, how you treat your employees, company culture, those things matter. But you also need to look at we'll call it HR, right? The back of the house, and how those things are handled. Because even if you are very well organized, if you're doing everything on paper in 2023, which is when we're recording this, you kind of seem like you're stuck in 1953, and that doesn't typically scream opportunity for advancement, which is usually what those rock star employees are looking for with retention on some level.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, especially as we look at Gen Z. Gen Z has expectations of the companies that they work for, from technology to advancement. You've hit it, right on the nail right on the head.
Yeah. And obviously, it's no secret that I have conversations with hundreds, if not thousands, of laundromat owners over the course of a year. And the truth is, what I refer to as the top of the industry, the top 20% of operators, they understand this. And yeah, there is a cost associated with services like ADP, but they take so much of the headache away.
Would you like to make more money from your laundromat? Would you like those machines you're paying for to have more turns per day? Do you offer wash, dry, fold services or pickup and delivery laundry services? If not, would you like to? Whether you do or not, we have an amazing opportunity for you in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah, you've probably heard about it, guys, but it's our wash, dry, fold, pickup and delivery workshop. And to answer your first question, yes, it is for drop-off laundry, wash, dry, fold, and pickup and delivery. So if you're doing any of those things, this workshop is going to help you tremendously. But the truth is, we were pretty so-so laundromat owners and so-so successful until we launched drop-off laundry and pickup and delivery. And being able to what I call optimize your laundromat to generate more profit and more revenue out of the existing facility, that's the key to taking your life from good to great, financially speaking, with laundromats. And that's what made us Laundromat Millionaires.
You don't have to just listen to us. Listen to what some of our past attendees have to say about our Wash, Dry, Fold pickup and delivery workshop in Cincinnati, Ohio.
It was the best workshop I've attended in over 25 years. And what you guys have put together is nothing short of phenomenal. I think that you guys have put together both strategic and tactical systems that will make an individual who wants to own the laundromat profitable within months, not years.
Was a workshop worth the investment? Without a doubt, it was definitely worth the investment. So not only did we have two very packed days with Dave and Carla and their team, both in the classroom and touring the facilities, but we also came away with this extensive 100-page handbook. And then after the workshop was completed, I received a bunch of electronic performers and templates that we've been able to use since the workshop. Every day since the workshop, I found myself referring back to either those electronic tools or the handbook that we received. So,
was it worth the investment? Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I cannot say that enough. This was such a blessing, and I am so very grateful that Dave and Carla put this together and are sharing their knowledge and experience with others to have this to grow their business and to become more successful. Thank you, guys.
So are you interested? Go to laundromatmillionaire.com to learn more and see where you can register.
I want to hit on a couple more things before we kind of end the episode. But one of them is that, we talked about the contract law and things like that. We talked about the payroll services and Run and the app and the technology and all those things. But that isn't all ADP does. Like if you go to ADP's website, it's unfathomable to me. It was like 30, 40, seemed like it was
payroll is one small piece. There's a whole lot more.
And I know that's the core, like that's the foundation. We got to get that right. We got to pay our taxes and we got to be legal and we got to do all those things. So let's not minimize it. But at the same time, there's so much more to it. And one of the things our platform is really big on is what we call supporting and advocating for the independent laundromat owner. So yes, there are franchises out there and things like that can provide HR services and retirement services and benefits. And I think a lot of times people join those types of organizations because they think it's the only way that their business model will be able to afford to get those things. And I've been really fascinated as I've learned more about this over the last few years to know that those products and services are available for independent, small, what we call mom and pop business owners too. Can you kind of talk about some of those services and maybe some of the more popular ones around like retirement and HR and things like that? And that, just because you only have 10 employees, you're not stuck out in the dark. Like there are services available and they're reasonable costs.
Yeah. And employee benefits, like I know health insurance, it's just a matter of time before we're required to offer it to everybody. So
For sure. So besides payroll, right? Like it's so interesting because that's where the conversations always start. And really the challenge of our role in the associates, my associate's role is to talk with the business owners and get that conversation away from payroll to things that a business owner would just never think about. You're busy, you're trying to grow your empire, you're focused on the revenue. We could talk about a few things. I could say, hiring. Let's just start with hiring, right? I know a lot of small businesses will, maybe they post it Indeed, maybe they post to Facebook, to Craigslist. They, put a, word of mouth out there. Run is designed to bring your hiring process all into one central system. And so not only does it streamline that for yourself as the business owner, but you actually have a system now that you could pass off to a key employee, right? And so now that you know that your hiring is done properly, that your job descriptions have been created by a professional, that you have an HR or an employee handbook that clearly defines your organization's expectations. Employees coming in the organization know exactly what's expected of them on the job. They have to acknowledge, right, the handbook before they even onboard. It's all done through the app. Like, this creates this seamless experience for the employees, but also a seamless experience for you as an owner that allows you to really scale and focus on the revenue generation and not that admin.
So does ADP, like when you get run, we already had an employee handbook, but do you create an employee handbook for your clients?
We absolutely can. So we have an employee handbook creation wizard, and it's amazing. You go into run and you answer a short survey essentially about your business, from your industry to your employee count, and several others, and then it spits out a fully compliant HR handbook. We've got a team of SHRM professionals that go in and write all of the different combinations of book. And so it comes out and you're able to go in and customize it to make it your own, but it keeps you out of hot water, and it makes sure that you have systems in place, right? Because, like, if you make sure that you have systems, processes in place, and, it protects you from a legal and compliance standpoint. If we're looking at like wrongful termination, right? If you go to terminate an employee that wasn't meeting their job duties, like, it was all documented. They signed off acknowledging that they agreed. It keeps them from being able to prevent some of that blowback. So,
and then run also can actually, you have hiring applications, so they can use run actually to fill out applications and apply to your business.
Yes. So we have a national partnership with ZipRecruiter, and for anyone out there, if you've never used ZipRecruiter, super powerful tool. We've got full blown access. So, hiring through ZipRecruiter, no additional cost. And it's all managed through your payroll portal. So the same place that you pay the employees is the same place that you can go to find new ones.
So tell us a little bit more, and maybe we've already covered it, I'm not sure, but the HR side of things, is there anything we haven't covered in that kind of silo?
I know, if my company's getting big enough where I want to offer things, employee benefits, like provide health care for them or provide some type of pension or 401k plan, like, how can ADP help me with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's two things I really want to point to. The one is integration. So, our technology is fully integrated. And so as you talk about being a small organization that's looking toward the long term, how do I offer benefits? How do I offer a 401k? Like, that's going to open me up to a world of liability. Do I give my employees enough fund options? Are we compliant with ERISA laws? Like, what is an ERISA? Well, what are the ERISA laws? Like, I don't even know, right? We take care of all of that burden. It's all built into the payroll system. And so, when you make that jump from 10 to 15 to 20, and you want to start thinking long term about health insurance or retirement, you don't have to have an admin, because a single change you make in the payroll system is communicated with our retirement side of the business, our health insurance side of the business. And so I'd say that's the first sort of gap that we fill. The second, I'd say, is for that organization that is growing and further increasing in complexity, and maybe, having, different departments, or maybe, store managers and managers of managers. And they're like, hey, things are getting complicated, right now, but I can't foresee myself spending the $80,000 or $90,000 for an HR pro. ADP actually has a shared HR model where your small business, 30, 40 employees, can share an HR professional, someone that's 10, 20 years experienced, maybe even with, Society of HR Management, the SHRM, the highest level of HR credential, can actually lend help from them and consult with them on how to get this organization to the next phase. And so that's an area that's definitely not talked about enough. But that's a gap in the market that we are filling every day. So yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, I think that's a really big deal in the context of laundromat industry in general, just because I think we're growing up, right? Our industry is growing up. I always say we're kind of 20 years behind the times, technology wise and a lot of other ways. And this is the ability to scale. I would just want people to know there's options, and it's not a black or white type of thing. There are options in between. And I don't think people know that, because honestly, until recently, I didn't know that. And we kind of fall in some of those categories. So I think it's good for people to know that when they get into business with ADP, you're providing that core, payroll services and things like that, but there's all kinds of automation built in. You talked about I think I've seen it on your website. It's like employee handbook wizard. Is that the name of it? It's kind of a self-driven kind of thing. I don't know if it's AI or what it is. Everybody wants to make everything AI right now.
Everything's AI these days, right?
But I don't know if it's that, and then you can grow up, so to speak, and advance to another level. And no matter what level you're at. So I mean, if ADP is handling enterprise accounts, then I think it's safe to say nobody in the laundromat industry is going to outgrow ADP for sure. What about the retirement and pension aspect of it? What does that look like? If you had let's use us as an example. We do not offer a retirement or pension. We offer health insurance and things like that to our employees or to our managers. And we have, company vehicles and cell phones and some perks and things like that for sure. But we definitely don't offer a pension or retirement. If you get to that point where, and I don't know if it's a number or if it's just a financial thing, do you know how you make that determination, and how does ADP kind of support that?
So glad you asked that question. Retirement, it means so much to me. I am a personal finance nut. But retirement makes sense. That's the beauty of it. It makes sense if you're one employee or if you're owner operator, it's just you. And it makes sense as well if you've got 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 employees, right? And so what's really cool about my role is like I get to consult with business owners and tee them up for really important conversations with our retirement services division. ADP actually owns a broker-dealer business. And so we put in place 401ks, IRAs, simple IRAs, SEP IRAs. And so it's important, right? Like just making sure that you secure your financial future. I talk to so many business owners that say, oh, my business is my retirement. And I see so many businesses with the for sale sign, and that's just not a solid plan. I'd say I think this is probably one of the more exciting conversations I get to have as we talk about the future and we talk about building wealth and investing. ADP is able to put in place 401k plans, and we can do it for a 1 employee business, or we can do it for a 100 employee business. And
let me stop you right there. Is it expensive? Because I know our audience is thinking that, like, okay, you can do it for 1 employee, but that doesn't mean it's reasonably priced. Is it expensive to do that?
Yeah, expensive is definitely a relative term. It is an investment to start a 401k. Just bluntly, right? Like you've got plans out there that start off very cheap. And as you start piling assets into this plan, because if you're doing retirement right, if you're doing it the right way, you're going to set it and forget it, right? You're going to just put your money in the plan every month. You're not going to look at it. The market's going to ebb and flow and you're not going to pay attention. And so 10 years can pass by like the snap of a finger. And what you don't realize is that if you've got a fee-based, an asset-based fee, that is slowly eating at your policy. And what started off as a really cheap retirement plan 5-10 years in could be costing you an arm and a leg. And so we break down plans all the time. We do free plan analysis for clients, and those are definitely the most interesting conversations because we get a lot of hesitation because people just don't like to make change. They're happy with the status quo. I've got money in there, it's growing, we're good. But when we get behind those plans and we dive into those asset-based fees, I mean, we tend to find massive savings. And that's where an ADP 401k, which is not asset-based, knocks it out the park every time. So
I think it's pretty awesome that you just have, I don't want to call you a one-stop shop but I think to an extent that's true, right? I think it's pretty cool that you start with a relationship with a payroll company with maybe even just a few employees, and you have this, let's I'm not minimizing it, but let's call it a very basic payroll company that keeps you compliant, keeps you legal, pays your taxes, et cetera. And then you're like, oh, we grew to 5 employees, we grew to 6. Okay, well, are we still compliant? Well, maybe you should consider this, or maybe you should do that. And you get to 10 and you say, oh, maybe we want to offer a 401k. And even if it's just something as simple as having that relationship to be able to go to Justis and say, okay, I'm not sure if I'm ready. Am I ready? Like, I don't know if I can afford this. I have the desire, in my heart to offer this to my employees, but can I afford it? What does it look like? And I'm sure super high level, you can be like, well, it's going to cost you kind of a minimum of this. Be like, oh, I can afford that easily. Okay. Or no, I can't. And that's another example of a, quote unquote free call, right? Free screening is just a little bit of quick advice. And you say, oh yeah, you can afford this. You're ready for this. And then break it down. And this goes a little bit deeper. And that's where you get into the cost structure. Exactly. But you just go right. You know who you go to. You go to your ADP rep.
And that's why that's where my team of associates really comes in. And so, Patrick's, he's the go-to in this case. He's my point person. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we haven't even shared the deal yet.
I know. Carla's dying. Carla's dying.
For those of you out there, our audience that are interested in looking at ADP services, like we have started using, you can, of course, as we've already mentioned, you can get a free complimentary HR screening where they will take a look at your business and help you determine what your needs are. But in addition to that, you can get 20% off the Run payroll software for any new users.
And that's ongoing, by the way. So that's not like a one-time onboarding thing. That's not, for a year or anything like that, right, Justis?
That 20%, you will actually be locked in for life, and you're not going to experience any dramatic changes in your price over time. That you're locked in there with that 20% for the entire life of the account.
Yeah. So
if you go to our website, if you go to the services page, you'll see a block there for ADP, and that takes you directly to our partnership website where you can get all the information you need to sign up for that.
Yep. And for those of you who don't know, there's other partnerships on there with other companies, as we mentioned before. And that's a big part of kind of our advocacy for the independent owner is continuing to bring, Carla likes them to call it discounts. So what I always like to tell people is with these partnerships, we're leveraging the power of what we call Laundromat Millionaire Nation. All of us kind of getting together with a little bit of buying power. And that was one of the first things me and Justis kind of discussed when he reached out to me is I was like, okay, this might make sense for us, but what about this other little thing we do over here called Laundromat Millionaire? And he was like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. And I was like, but here's the thing. We're not going to promote, products and services of yours without some type of a value prop for our followers is what we refer to you as. And that's where the 20% discount came in. And that's pretty substantial. And to give you an idea, I won't talk exact numbers, but we were using Paychex, which is also a very big payroll company and had for 12 or 13 years before we switched over. And I think one of the things a lot of people associate big, expensive companies like ADP is, that all sounds great, but it must be really expensive compared to, whatever cheapo payroll company or some bare bones type of service. And I'm sure there is a cost associated with it, but I guess what I'm getting at is when we switched from one of your competitors that's supposedly lesser priced, we actually saved money with the 20% because, of course, Carla got the deal too, right? So we actually, our cost for payroll services went down as the services we received and the technology and things like that with ADP went up. So we were, it's not always as clear as it seems. And that's kind of the idea behind what we're trying to do. One of the things we're trying to do with the platform is just to leverage that buying power with companies like ADP and other partnerships out there. And obviously, Justis and ADP were all about it. They were like, yeah, let's go help a whole industry, so to speak. And so that's a big part of why we're here today is hopefully you got a lot of value out of this episode. And Justis, thanks for bringing the value and sharing tips and tricks and best practices. One thing I would like to do before we leave today, Carla mentioned, go to the website, Laundromat Millionaire, click on the other services tab, and you'll see the ADP right there to get your 20% discount. But there's all kinds of information on how to contact Patrick, who Justis was just referring to. He'll do that free complimentary screening with you. He'll answer any questions you have and things like that. No obligation. And I will tell you, I'll speak for Justis and Patrick here. They're not salesy. Like they absolutely approach this with the what I call heart of a servant, meaning it's just like, hey, we're here to help. If we can help, we will. If we're not the right fit, we will tell you that too. And that was a big part of the partnership, is this not being some kind of, slimy, sleazy type of thing. It's like, no, we're about helping people. And one, thanks for reaching out to me through LinkedIn, because sometimes that's how these things happen. So I appreciate you doing that, because I probably wouldn't have reached out to you or even to who you were, to be honest. But so I appreciate that. So before we go today, I want to give you an opportunity for anything that maybe we've missed that you think would bring value to our audience.
So Dave, I think some folks are going to have some questions.
Yeah, they are for sure. And I appreciate you bringing that up. So before we go today, one of the things I wanted to tell people is that Justis and Patrick and who knows, maybe we'll bring the whole daggone ADP team, but we're going to do either a live Q&A or a webinar of some kind with them, because we don't see a lot of content and a lot of information out there specifically for our industry, but even for small businesses on these types of services. And we think like a free Q&A would be awesome. And so I appreciate you guys be willing to lend your expertise. We haven't scheduled a date or a time for that yet, but just kind of watch for that. If this was helpful, that's going to be kind of another level, because you'll get to interact, post questions in the chat, just like a lot of the other Q&As on topics that we do. And Justis and Patrick will be there to kind of answer your questions, and we'll be there to prod them a little bit too. So watch for that in the future. This is being recorded. If you are watching this episode in the future, this is being recorded in like late October of 2023, but we're probably going to look at doing the Q&A sometime around the beginning of the year of 2024. So if you follow us on social media, check out our website. There will be announcements for there on that. If you're on our email list, if you're not, by the way, you should get on our email list, because we send out a lot of great deals, right, Carla?
Yes.
On there. So we'll send out an announcement to our email list to let you know where to register for the webinar and the Q&A and things like that too. So we appreciate you being willing to take the time and lend your expertise to do that.
Oh, absolutely. It's that time of year. A lot of business owners are evaluating. So happy to do that. Happy to lend our time.
Yeah, appreciate it. So guys, check that out.
To part, I just want to say thanks, Dave. And I'm glad I reached out. I'm glad we were able to connect. I send a lot of those messages out each month, and a lot of folks don't respond. And it's really cool to see you and Carla out here killing it as a team, and really just building this thing up from the ground. It's been really inspiring to watch the story, and I really do appreciate you having us on and giving us that opportunity to help the audience. We really just want to plant seeds. We want to give folks the food for thought, give them the tools and the resources, so that when they determine the time is right, they know who to come to. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate that. All right. Anything else we haven't covered, Carla?
I don't think so. No? All right.
Okay.
It was so good to meet with you, Justis, and we appreciate you being on here.
Yeah,
likewise.
Absolutely. All right. For everyone back home, we'll see you next time for another episode of the Laundromat Millionaire Show. Take care.